Oh, this is live right across the street from my house. Freaking power line just went down. Tried my little water hose, but I hear a pop coming from across the street. As soon as I hear the pop, all I heard is like electrical, like zzz, going on the ground there. Look, there's the power line right there. And shortly after, thing was just arcing away on the ground, landed right in dry grass, so sparks, and then there was a fire. So the fire from there, to me, it simulated a fuse, like somebody lit a fuse for a firework, and it just followed a straight line all the way up to the pole where the thing was, and it landed in a bigger pile of dry grass, and that just ignited. You get all this wind blowing, and now you get a fire. It just, that was fuel, and just in a matter of minutes, that whole place was just engulfed. They came up with a water truck, started dousing it, had another couple local construction companies brought up their water tankers, just also helped and assist in just knocking down the fire. So within a couple hours they had that, which we thought was all contained. And then from there just went ahead about our day, thinking that it was all done. Unbeknownst that later on that afternoon, the winds just continued to just smoke the whole day. And I guess that's what just fueled the restarting. The wind was so crazy, nothing could have determined that it would snap those lines. Because if it was blowing the roof off my house, honestly, it was like, I wouldn't blame them. Like, I wouldn't put it like, oh, it's your fault, because the wind was crazy. It was smoking so hard. Yeah, it's super crazy. And then on the other hand, it's like maybe it'll bring closure to some of the families, answer some of the questions, help determine what was the start. Instead of like everybody, we're hearing like stories like they're blaming the firefighters. There's like, oh, why did they deem it 100% contained? But I say, you know what? They put their lives out there. I don't want to put that blame on somebody. It's like they're helping us.
From the beginning, I think the White House actually put out a pretty extensive fact sheet, but it detailed some of the Navy assets that were used at the very beginning, some of the Army assets. So active duty was involved at the beginning, but as with a crisis or disaster like this, the coordinating agency is FEMA, and so everything that needs to be surged into Maui for help within the community or fire suppression is going to be coordinated through FEMA. So that's why now you have the JTF 50 that's going to help with those coordination efforts. But yes, active duty is going to be part of that, and active duty has been part of that. This is one of our biggest military installations, a home to many in Hawaii, and so I just don't want to get ahead of any numbers, and they're going to ebb and flow as FEMA, continues to request service and support, or does not, as the fires mitigate, as there's a need for less infrastructure, whatever it is that the community needs. It's going to ebb and flow. I don't have that. Right now, our efforts, as I mentioned at the top, are really focused on search and rescue and working within the community to whether it's flowing in supplies or knitting closely together with FEMA to make sure that they have everything that they need when they're conducting these search and rescue operations. That's really our focus right now. One of the assignments that approved assignments that we are doing with FEMA is conducting inner island air and sea transportation. So for the movement of cargo, if there needs to be more bottled water brought in, additional personnel and supplies and equipment, we'll be providing that.
usually they put on the hurricane sirens or they do something to like warn us. Nothing. Like everyone was just word of mouth evacuating. That's why so many people were just on Front Street, just hanging out. Like they were helpless. Like the smoke just got them.
Part of adaptation planning on the part of the public authorities is about not only trying to make communities more resilient to these kind of threats physically, whether if you're thinking about a fire, it might be creating fire breaks or whatever, but it's also about having these appropriate early warning systems in place. And it is very much the public authorities that are responsible for maintaining those and putting them in place. So yeah, I think where there is a failure in those early warning systems, people do naturally and quite rightly blame the authorities. It's thinking about exactly how to reach everybody, and variety is obviously going to be really important there. But I think the other thing, and this is where sometimes systems fall down, is you really need to make it very clear to people what they're expected to do. Because a siren, for example, I mean, what does that actually tell people? So even if the siren had gone off, would it have encouraged everyone to jump into their car, for example? And in a wildfire situation, that may be not the best idea, actually.
We have the early alert warning messaging during disasters, typhoons, flooding, or even earthquakes. And this is a partnership between government, OCD, and the RMC, our Emergency Operations Center. Of course, we have TICT and our telco partners that we collaborate to send out early alert warning messaging for the most vulnerable in a particular hazards. And this is also being reiterated through redundant means through our social media accounts. And we capture all possible means to communicate the threats of the hazards and keep people safe and prepare. The communicating hazards and the risks that they pose on the citizenry should actually be laymanized. For example, the term storm surge. So had we been more keen in translating this into the vernacular and probably qualifying what these are and the threats that they pose on the people, especially in the coastal areas of Eastern Visayas and elsewhere, then we could have saved lives.
There's a risk that actually we can assume that technology will solve everything and that it's all about technology. But in fact, it's often about psychology as well, and about how people react to the technologies in place and whether they're using them appropriately.
It's a kind of disconcerting feeling when the fire guys show up and they don't have water. I was grabbing water out of the toilet. I was grabbing water out of my Brita filter in the refrigerator.
Nothing would make us more pleased if we couldn't go back in time and have a lot more protection from sirens. We will do all we can to get more water. We will do all that we can to get more warnings for people.
I've seen the politicians go from Hawaiian natives, people representing the culture and traditions that live here, to people that aren't even from here. They just don't even have any roots here. It's got to this point where it's like, who are these people watching us? Do they even properly care for us? In the morning, I remember checking my phone like on Instagram and stuff. I seen there was a fire up on the hill more, and then I thought nothing of it really because it seemed like it died down pretty easily. And then around 3 o'clock or 2, I noticed like the wind was picking up pretty hard, and then I seen like, I thought it was a dark cloud at first went over, but then once I looked out outside my window, it was just all the smoke from the fire. I just feel lucky so far because my house is still standing. Unfortunately, the houses around just reduced to rubble and ash, so it's pretty scary. I feel bad for them.
I'd say it's going to take years to rebuild and to come back to. Just seeing dead bodies on the rocks on the beach, bodies in the car. There was a kid underneath a car on Front Street. Looked like his dad was trying to protect him, but they just was burnt. Pets, cats, dogs, just all burnt right in the middle of the road. And then before the fire even got to this side, there were people running towards our house. Like their hair looked like it just got burned, their face was all black. And then there's just all just sweat running towards us. I got an auntie and an uncle, a family of 4. Their daughter and their grandson, 7 years old, they were caught in the fire down there. They were trying to get away, but they were in the car. I guess the telephone just fell in their car and they just stuck inside. They got burned.
It's our home. We've lived here 30 years. Our kids were born here. We just don't know the next steps. It's like a bomb went off. It's the end of all of it. It's gone. It's gone. It's so weird.
We're just camping it out over here, like just waiting for them to give us the okay to go back in and help clean up, just do whatever we can.
In just a moment, I will turn it over to FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, who is joining us from Hawaii. There are already more than 300 FEMA employees on the ground aiding response efforts. FEMA has provided 50,000 meals, 75,000 liters of water, 5,000 cots, and 10,000 blankets to the county government for distribution. The Coast Guard and the Navy 3rd Fleet supported response and rescue effort the day after the fires first started, and the Marines provided Black Hawk helicopters to fight fires on the Big Island. With that, Administrator Criswell will provide an update.
As residents continue to mourn the loss of their friends, their loved ones, their neighbors, the loss of their homes and their way of life, we know and let them know that we are mourning with them. Nothing can prepare you for what I saw during my time here, and nothing can prepare them for the emotional toll of the impact that this severe event has taken on them. And as you heard, I have been in continuous communication with the president since these fires started. I have been giving him updates and his team updates, letting him know what the federal family is doing to support everything that Governor Green has asked for. As you just heard, I did arrive here on the ground very early Saturday morning at the direction of the president, and it gave me the opportunity to spend 2 full days. The coming days and the weeks, they're going to be tough. They're going to be difficult as people process what they have lost and what the road ahead looks like. But we are going to be with the people of Hawaii, as I have committed to the governor, every step of the way. We are already seeing a tremendous amount of efforts and resiliency across the community as they are coming together to support each other as they work through what this is going to look like in the future. And I also had an opportunity to talk to survivors and hear from them really some harrowing stories of survival as they evacuated from the area and sought shelter. I think right now our focus is on making sure that we are doing everything we can to account for everybody that has been unaccounted for. And the president has given me the space to make sure I'm bringing in all of the appropriate federal personnel and resources to do that. And so we will continue to do that right now. We want to make sure that they have, you know, all of the resources and the space that they need and not disrupt operations right now. We are continuing to prioritize the safety and the well-being of the Hawaii residents in coordination with our state officials and all of our federal partners. It is extremely hazardous. There are structures that are partially standing that engineers have to clear first to make sure it's safe for the search and rescue teams to go into, make sure it's safe for the dogs to go into. We also have to make sure the